this evening. And a special thank you to our super speakers for taking time out of their busy schedules to be a part of this great event. I would also like to say a super thank you to the illustrious Kim Hosen of the Prince William Conservation Alliance for putting together such a great event, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening with us.
Thank you, Sonny. That was so nice. And I am Kim Hosen. I'm the Executive Director of Prince William Conservation Alliance, and we welcome everybody here and are delighted to have some really terrific speakers with us tonight, and to be able to have all you here, which makes it a really informative, interesting, and important conversation. So I just will say one thing about Prince William Conservation Alliance, and we've been doing a series of these programs, and you can see here, I'm just going to share my screen for a minute. You can look at our calendar page, and we have a list of what's upcoming. We have really a pretty good range from nature to smart growth and everything in between like this. And thanks to the support of our members and friends, we are still able to offer these programs at no charge. But once you're on our webpage, you can just hit join us and donate safely online, and we sure appreciate it, and that helps keep these programs free. And wait a minute, now I can't get you back. So I'm sorry, I gotta stop sharing. There we go. Sorry for that little blip. It does happen once in a while. So we're thrilled to have 4 great speakers here. First, we're going to hear from Sharon. I lost her. Oh, Sharon Richardson. I see her waving at me. And I'm going to let every speaker tell you a little bit about themselves, because we're going to be hearing their stories. So Sharon, do you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Kim. My name is Sharon Richardson. And like many of us, I wear a lot of hats in the community. My day job is as a public information officer with the Prince William County Police Department. That keeps me busy. I'm also the Woodbridge District Commissioner on the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Commission. So I represent the Great Woodbridge District. Although I live in the Occoquan District, I represent the Woodbridge District on the Parks and Rec Commission. I'm also very active in Girl Scouts, both here in Eastern Prince William County and also at the council level and at the national level. So that keeps me busy, and I'm active in my church. And when my kids were products of Prince William County Public Schools, I was active in the schools. So now to get on to the specific reason that I'm here, let me pull up my screen to share with you, if it will come up. Here we go. Never mind. I won't share my screen with you, even though I had a lovely PowerPoint, because...
Well, wait, would it just not share screen?
No, I'm using a Mac, which I normally use a PC. I'm using my Mac because it's got a great camera and all, but it has lots of security settings, and it's asking me all these things before it will allow an outside organization to view.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't thinking, I didn't preset that stuff up, so I won't waste time, but I can tell you what my slide presentation said. Basically, one of the questions posted for tonight was, how did my early experiences shape my feelings about nature and wild spaces? And I will say there were 2 early experiences. One was my family, who used the heck out of local, state, and national parks. Like many of us who grew up in the 60s and 70s and even the 50s, camping and visiting national parks was considered sort of an inexpensive family vacation. So we went to many of the East Coast parks. I didn't get out west until I was an adult, but I love that. My parents were both scientists, so they loved nature and the outdoors. And many of the time, my brothers and I were dragged, kicking and screaming, to go look at some wildlife. My mother was a lobbyist for the Save the Bay Foundation back in the 60s and 70s in Maryland. And they were instrumental in eventually getting all of the protections that we now have on all of the tributaries leading to the bay, because my mother was a marine biologist. So my brothers and I were dragged along to the state capitol in Annapolis. And we were also dragged out to all sorts of rivers, streams, and estuaries in the great state of Maryland, helping my mom collect water samples. And my dad was a research chemist at NIH. So, you know, they loved the outdoors and had us outside at every moment. The second big influence was Girl Scouts. As a child, I attended day camps and sleepaway camps owned by the Girl Scouts. And at the troop level, my troops camped extensively, both on Girl Scout properties and private and state properties in Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So, and then when I was a Girl Scout troop leader, I had my troops camping every chance I got. And had you been able to see the PowerPoint, I put in 3 neat pictures of me and my troops. One is at Cooper's Rock State Park near Morgantown, West Virginia. One is on the National Mall, which people don't think of as a green space, but it is, for the Girl Scouts 90th anniversary sing-along in the mall back in the early 2000s. And then another one is with my troop near the summit of Big Schloss in the George Washington National Forest that straddles West Virginia and Virginia. So I, as a child, I was taken outdoors, and as a parent and Girl Scout troop leader, I've taken girls outdoors. One of the other questions posited is, how do we encourage more people to visit and use the great outdoors? And I had 4 bullet points that I'd like people to think about as we discuss this. One, drop the assumption that minority groups don't use parks and recreation facilities. They are there, perhaps not in the numbers that reflect the, you know, their population, but they are there. There are lots of members of minority groups using state, local, and national parks. Do targeted marketing and communications to those groups that you'd like to see more of in your parks and outdoor spaces. You know, obviously all of us put out information about activities, but you can do some micro targeting to certain groups that you'd like to increase participation. One way to get more people comfortable in the outdoors and comfortable owning it is to provide programming for children, for families, for young singles, and also for older adults. That gets them out to your parks and green spaces. Some maybe for the first time, but once they're there, that beautiful land speaks for itself. And then make sure your frontline staff represents the demographics of your community. What do I mean by frontline staff? Park rangers, people who work the front desk, people who work the entrance gates, people who work in the gift shops or the community centers. That's not saying, oh, fire everybody who's there, but do some targeted recruiting to bring in more people, because it's been proven time and again, when all of us see people that we feel we can relate to, they look like us, they pray like us, they love like us, you know, whatever that is, you feel more comfortable, you feel welcomed. So make sure your frontline staff represents that. Another way to have more participation, more people earning the benefits of the great outdoors is to make sure that your green spaces are equally distributed. The New York Times ran a feature article on September 30th of this year about parks in Denver, Colorado. And they talked about fixing a legacy of environmental racism using parks and other open spaces. And the article noted that in most American jurisdictions, trees, green space, and parks tend to be in wealthier and wider neighborhoods. So, and we have that problem a teensy bit here in Prince William. If you look at the amount of green space in Prince William County in terms of park acreage, more of it is in western Prince William County than in eastern Prince William County. And so as you do your land use planning, as you look at smart growth, you've got to make sure that you're addressing environmental racism and trying to have your resources more equitably allocated. So concluding, because I got less than 20 seconds, we all know that parks and other public or private green spaces improve the well-being of all of our residents. We know that increasing the number of people who are the face of your parks and recreation spaces makes a more welcoming environment. And I will stop there because my time is up. But I'll be happy to take questions on this later.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much. That was really interesting.
Thanks.
And I must say that I love your part about your parents dragging you around, which I did to my kids, and it worked for them also.
Yep, that's how you get people hooked.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Carlos Castro, who is a longtime supporter of community programs here in Prince William and the owner of Toto's Supermarket. And then I'll let you introduce yourself, Carlos.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, Kim, and for the great work that you do with the natural resources of our county. My name is Carlos Castro. I'm originally from El Salvador. I was raised there and moved to the U.S. after our Civil War back in 1980. And to show you to tell you where my interest grew up out of, for natural resources, I had to bring you back to my childhood. You know, we grew up in one of the largest cities of the capital of El Salvador, but we were like a very poor family without running water, no sewer, you know, in the house, and it was a very humble beginning, but we were rich in natural resources. So to me and my siblings, it was only natural that we had like 4 hours of a walk. We could be halfway into one of the most beautiful volcanoes in El Salvador. And there was 2 volcanoes, you know, one that is virgin, you know, had never erupted. And the other one that's right next to it that erupted in 1917. And actually by the age of when I was finishing 6th grade at 12, our last trip, our going away event was to go down into the crater all the way to the bottom of it. As a child, it was such a great experience. And besides that, you know, my neighborhood was surrounded by a beautiful, I would not call it a river because you might think it's the Potomac, you know, but I would say a nice creek with a lot of water springs, you know, and we used to go there to, you know, pick up flowers that were edible. My mom would cook with them and to collect, to try to fish with our bare hand under the rocks, you know, and all these great things that, you know, that it really give you, even though a poor childhood, it was a very happy very enjoyable childhood. So to me, it was it's been natural to take a walk on any anything that present a challenge, you know, and beauty and fresh air and flowers and all Mother Nature can offer. So, you know, as far as how to get people into the park, I think we need to figure out something like, you know, Kim, I don't know if you have been lately to the Veteran Park, you know, or Lisildania is full of Latinos because Hispanic American people or Latin American people or Latins, whatever you want to call it, we love bodies of water, you know, parks that are next to water. So that's why if you go to some of these parks that are close to the water, like Lisildania, on a weekend, it's got a lot of visitors from the Hispanic community. I think where we need to work a little bit is in promoting those other parks that are not as visited, you know, to the community and showing programs or the beauty that those parks can offer to the community. So it's, you know, a lot of fun work. You know, we can create programs, we can create activities that bring families in. So it's going to require a lot of work from the community. Now, the pandemic that we're living has also presented with some opportunities, because where can you be breathing clean air if it's not in a beautiful forest, you know, where you can actually be not 6 feet apart, but 20 feet apart, just playing and running and breathing all the fresh air. So I think we as a community, you know, maybe through Kim, and I guess we also need to figure out how to get more members to register so that each member of the Conservancy Alliance can actually be an ambassador in the community to promote the different parks. But before we do that, we need to know them, like the Merrimack Park that have been, you know, and other parks that I have heard about them, but I never have had the opportunity to visit. So I think all we have to do is put our head together and come up with neat, enjoyable ideas to attract people to the parks that don't get as much traffic as the ones that are close to the water and immediate to where people live. So we have a treasure. I think Prince William is one of the more blessed, you know, counties in the area because of greens, because of the park, whether it's county or state or national, you know, wealth. I call it wealth. That's what made me happy when I was a kid, and that's what makes me happy now. You know, just enjoying Mother Nature. And I think, you know, my time is pretty much up, Kim, I think
Sure,
I'll
then
wait.
will you get a chance after at the end when everybody is asking questions?
Exactly. Yeah, I'll wait for, you know, for the question Q&A. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you. That
listening.
was lovely, Carlos.
Thank you.
And next up we have Maritza Rivas.
Can you hear me?
Good. Maritza is, I'm not sure if I get the rank right, the first park manager, high-ranking park person.
So I went from the first female Hispanic chief ranger for Virginia State Parks now to the assistant park manager, and was currently as kind of the acting park manager for the park as our manager is out very ill. So it's been certainly quite a roller coaster. I did create a small, quick PowerPoint, though, since I don't want to, here, let's see if I'm able to share this with you guys. Anyways, okay, so real quick. So how did I get into the outdoors? similar to what Carlos has been through the experience, I actually was brought to the States when I was 5 years old from El Salvador. And so I was raised in Northern Virginia. So I can be honest right now, until this experience right now, I've never met anyone else who is also Hispanic and is into the natural resources how I am. So this is quite an amazing experience for me at this moment. And I've been through so many different talks already for the past 5-6 years that I've been through Virginia State Parks. So it's an honor to meet you, Carlos. So how I started, through Prince William County, they started an initiative back when I was in the 7th grade, which was the MWEs or MeWEs. Which meant that every 7th grader needed to have the opportunity to experience some sort of outdoorsy program. So through there, didn't know that they actually had planted that seed in my mind, and I became very much inspired as I continued going into school. Later on, I graduated from Freedom High School. Their program's called the Center for Environmental Sciences. And through there, I got to meet different presenters from the government, and a lot of them would help me try to connect with the community already by doing different types of volunteer hours. And that's how I got to know some people around here, and which led me through Louisiana State Park. That was probably my first job ever. So when I went into college, George Mason University, I initially went in there for biology, but then I noticed that that didn't meet the satisfaction that I wanted, which was to more like understand the society and the people and the environment. So the closest thing that I could study was global affairs. But then I also got a concentration in wildlife conservation and ecology from the Smithsonian. That was when they were doing a partnership through George Mason and the Smithsonian Institute together, and that was out in Front Royal. So that's the picture right there, studying, doing field work, and tracking down wood turtles with some friends of mine. So they told us not to take pictures because it was a very discreet area, since they're kind of right now they're pretty much becoming extinct. And the other picture is of in the archives for the Smithsonian. In the back is a head of a whale. So through the years, since I went into Louisiana, I started off as just a seasonal part-timer, and I then continued moving through the ranks. Then later became the education support specialist. So that was a 1,500-hour employee, again, part-timer. But I used my time wisely by trying to do homeschool programs, also connecting with the community through the Hildebarg Homeless Prevention Center. And then that also led to developing small career plans for college students and also for Hispanic families. The person that you see right there is the director of Virginia State Parks that just actually retired. That's Craig Sievers. His place was just recently taken by someone who he was mentoring for a very long time. So she's the first female director right now, Melissa Baker. So it's a great honor. It's a great time to be living right now for Virginia State Parks. So through the times that I've been there, I've kind of helped assist with making more conversations on diversity and inclusion. And it's been a phenomenal time. We're still learning. A lot of this stuff is very new to us. Today. Excuse me? Hello?
So he was cool, or he said something like
I think somebody needs to mute.
Yes, everybody needs to be on mute, and we'll do the conversation after all the speakers have had a chance.
And so the most recent changes that we've been able to create in terms of diversity and inclusion is create like a subcommittee for Virginia State Parks. This is our first committee that targets exactly diversity and inclusion for Virginia State Parks. It's called IDEA. So it stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility. So it also thinks about people who have certain disabilities or particular specialty abilities, should we say, that we should be more conscientious of. All right, so I will try not to go into too much detail because it's only 7 minutes, but yes.
Okay, are you closing out? Yes.
Yes,
Thank you. You'll have more to say after when we have a conversation.
thank you.
Next up, we have Brent Hankins, who is an outdoor man. And, you know, with a wide variety of interests. So Brett, tell us all about it.
Thank you, Kim. My name is Brent Hankins. I don't have really a background in working in the parks or anything like that, but I do have a similar background. I went to George Mason also and studied ecology and have a degree in biology from George Mason. As a kid, I always wanted to hunt, so I would go out into the woods and with a slingshot and try to take out squirrels, and I'd get a few and cook them and that kind of thing. But I never really had anybody in my family who did much in the outdoors. So fast forward to age 24, I actually went out and bought my own bow and taught myself how to shoot. And a friend took me out to some property in Culpeper. And on my first hunt, I got a deer with my bow, and I was really excited. But I wanted to become more proficient with my bow, so I decided that I was going to start practicing. And I looked around and I found in Prince William County there is an archery club, and I started going there. And it's the Isaac Walton League in Brentsville, and I started going there and getting better at shooting archery. And then I looked on the internet and found that there was a national level archery tournament down in Roanoke. So I went down there, and it was a very interesting experience. There's probably 1,000 archers from all over the country, and I was the only Black person there. And it was a really interesting thing because, you know, people were pretty welcoming. I competed in bodybuilding for a long time, so I'm not the smallest person in the world. And back then I was a lot bigger than I am now. And people were just like, who the heck is this guy? But I shot pretty decent, and out of, I think 157 archers in my class, I got 28th. And I was like, wow, this is something that I can do. So the following year, anybody that knows me knows that I put in a lot of time and effort into things. And I decided that I wanted to progress. So I focused on archery for a while and came back. And the next year I shot the full tour, which was a series of 5 tournaments, and then one world championship. And out of those 5 tournaments, I had 5 top 10 finishes, 3 top 5 finishes, and was 4th overall for shoot of the year. So I progressed through that and eventually was able to shoot my way up through the ranks to the pro level. And I've hunted, you know, I did pretty well in the pro level, injured my shoulder. That's why I stopped shooting competitively. But I've hunted all over the country. I've interacted with people of all nationalities. But in a lot of the sports and things that I've done in the outdoors, I've had very limited exposure, well, limited experience with other people that look like me. Literally in the pro ranks, I was the first Black person to shoot as a pro archer for Matthews, as a factory archer. And I'd go to these tournaments, and I had people that just literally had never even talked to a Black person, let alone shoot with one. So that was an interesting experience. But in the county, I've lived in Manassas for 25 years, and I've gone to almost every park in the county because I do a lot of fishing. I hunt. I've been to Lee, Sylvania, and put my kayak in there. I go to places like Pohick, Prince William Forest Park. I'm an avid cyclist, so I ride my bike at Prince William Forest Park on pretty much every week. And I think that there seems to be, I attended the last meeting that you put on, Kim. And it seems to me that people just aren't getting out and enjoying the parks the way they should. There's a lot of opportunities out there. And to be honest, I think that some of the fear around going out and doing these things are you really don't need to be afraid, because most people are welcoming. I've had very few experiences at any parks, actually at none, that have been negative. You meet people, you see people, and I see women out running by themselves and hiking, some of the same people a lot. I see people, women going out kayaking and doing things like that. It's just a matter of getting some exposure. And I think a big part of it is finances. Buying a bike is expensive, buying a kayak is expensive, but there are opportunities to rent things, and maybe offering, free kayak rentals for kids, and that would get the parents out, or something like that would be a really good thing to involve some people in the outdoors. But like Sharon had said, having a demographic that was more representative of society, when you meet people, it just makes people feel a little easier, I think. I've never been one to be intimidated by this, so my situation might be a little bit different, but there's so much opportunity out there, and you miss so much if you don't go out into the woods. I mean, I was at Prince William Forest Park the other day, actually on Sunday riding, and 2 gray foxes run across the road as I'm going through. I mean, and they were young, but they just didn't care. And I stopped my bike and I was watching them, and they were looking at me. And these are things that people just never see unless they get out. There's nothing really to be afraid of. You don't have to worry about snakes and spiders and everything else. None of that stuff really wants to bother you. It's trying to get away from you and do its thing. So I just like to see a lot more people out there doing what they want to do in the woods and enjoying it. That's pretty much all I have.
Thanks. Well, we'll have more later. And I just am delighted to say that Dudley Edmondson, author of Black and Brown Faces in America's Wild Places, has joined us. So hello, Dudley. Do you have a few words you'd like to say?
I'm going to unmute myself. No, I'm enjoying the program. I'm glad to see folks have tuned in and are continuing the conversation. As Kim, you and I talked, I said it's rare for me to be able to circle back with a community and see what happens after I give a presentation or a talk. A lot of times over the years, you go in and you talk and you never really know what happens. And it's nice to, through the magic of Zoom and with Corona, I can circle back and check in and see people are doing things and continuing the conversation. I have had similar experiences to Brett in terms of being in the outdoors. My wife and I just spent 3 days camping in the Boundary Waters, which is an area, wilderness area north of Duluth, Minnesota, near the Canadian border. And the thing that was interesting to me was there was so many Trump signs and all kinds of things. I mean, Duluth, the city I live in, northern Minnesota, is a blue town, but all around us are red towns. And I knew by leaving Duluth, you get into these spaces where people are kind of interesting, but kind of like Brett, I don't let people intimidate me. I go out and I do what I want to do. And I ran into people on the trail. Most people, I'd say 99% of them were very friendly and nice. And then other people just simply didn't speak to me. And it's like, okay, that's fine too. So I say hi and they just stared at me. So there's that kind of behavior out there, but I guess I just am in that camp of, you're a free American citizen, do what you want to do. You belong wherever you choose to be. So yeah, I guess that's about it.
Okay, you might have more to chip in as we talk. I noticed several comments on the need for parkland and green open space near people in high density areas. And I think that is a subject to really explore because people they're not going to drive across the county to get out. So I think making parkland accessible is really important here. Does anyone have a story to share from growing up or today or your kids? Oh, we all must have stories. I can get Elena to talk about her great yard and bring in the effort to bring nature closer to your home.
Actually, I was going to share the story about Prince William Forest Park. I went to school in Fairfax County, and every year they would load us onto a bus, and we would go to Prince William Forest Park. And my best memory, I actually don't know if I call it my best memory, my indelible memory was it was the year of the locusts, and I mean the kind that come up from the deep depths of the earth. And there was a swarm, and all I remember is the locusts coming through the window and boys throwing them in my hair. And to this day, I am terrified of locusts. But I'll never forget Prince William Forest Park. And we used to camp there. And I remember fourth grade. I don't know that they still do it. But they would take all the kids to the cabins. And I remember that was the most exciting time to leave. It was a pretty suburban area, so you didn't have the quiet of the forest. And I remember those times being in the camp with the teacher and the kids, and it was just a little bit cold, and you got under your sleeping bag and you could hear all the noises. And it was just fabulous. And those were really wonderful memories. And you know, I don't know if they still do it in Fairfax County. I kind of doubt that they do. But maybe Tanya could speak to that if she still has kids from, you know, all over coming into, I think it was Prince William Forest Park. Yeah, that would come and stay in the cabins. So that's my story.
You have comments, Tanya?
Comments, I can answer the question. Hi, Elena, thank you. And everyone on the phone, just so you know, who I am, my name is Tanya Gossett. I am the superintendent at Prince William Forest Park, which is a unit of the National Park Service in your backyard. I encourage everybody to stop by. We'd love to see you. So the cabin camps, we have 5 historic cabin camps. I think that's what Elena is referring to. And they were built during the Great Depression by the CCC. We still operate them as group campgrounds, and we have 3 of them, despite COVID, we still have 3 of them open this year at 50% capacity so that people can spread out. So if you're interested, please look at the park website and give our cabin camp coordinator a call, and he can set you up. But yes, we definitely still have a lot of different groups that come in, and that's people who have weddings, it's people who have family reunions. We have some groups, social groups that come every year and have come for the last 30 years. It's a real tradition for a lot of folks. So check out the website in the cabin camping section and stop on by if and when COVID, we get past that. We're really hoping for to see everybody back again. We miss seeing our cabin camps being enjoyed by our visitors at this point with COVID. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, and I just want to make a comment now that on October 26th, Tanya will be back here presenting information about Prince William Forest Park, which environmentally speaking is really a shining star. And here in Prince William, we have so little awareness of it. So I highly recommend that and hope you come back. Anybody else?
Kim, this is Ilana.
Hi.
I think for me, the environment informs everything that I am and everything that I do. I'm an environmental activist, but not an expert, so I don't have any alphabet soup behind my name. I'm deeply, deeply concerned about the integrity and the accessibility of our water, and I'm in the midst of reading Aaron Brockovich's book, Superman's Not Coming. But you've asked about our personal relationship with the environment, and so I've done a lot of backpacking, and I spent 10 days in Escalante Park, going where, of course, back in those days, we didn't have cell phones, but going where no car and no motorbike or nothing, not even bicycles could get to. I've hiked from the top of the Grand Canyon down to the base, and I never was so surprised. It was in April, and I was in a sleeping bag one April night, and snow was coming down when we were at the top, and I hiked down to the base. And when I hiked down the base, I was in my swimsuit. So not only do you go north and south, but as you go from the top of the earth into the belly of the earth, you also change temperatures. So that I have really, my spirit has been deepened and expanded and in awe. And given our present crisis with what I'm now beginning to call the climate chaos, it has enriched my ability to enjoy the moment, because I'm not convinced we're going to be seeing this level of beauty for a lot longer. But without being morbid, what it really means is that when I see a tree, I really see a tree, and flowers and that which grows. And I first moved to Virginia and lived with Granny Hirsch, and she said we better teach the children how to plant as well as to count. I've taken that to heart also. So thank you for everyone who's been sharing, and Kim, thank you for bringing this kind of discussion through Zoom.
And thanks for making it a better discussion. I'm glad you're here. So actually, oh, Jack?
Yeah, I was going to share. I'm Jack Kuyumjian. I'm currently president of the Lake Ridge Occoquan Coal Civic Association. This is our 50th anniversary year, 2020, and what a year it is with COVID and all. But I just wanted to share with everyone my orientation toward green and parks and open space. And I grew up in a setting in Boston where we didn't have a lot of green space in Dorchester, Massachusetts. But through church activities, I joined Boy Scouts. My dad was self-employed, so he couldn't take us hunting and fishing and doing the things we want to do because he literally worked 7 days a week. But through church activities, I joined Boy Scouts and became a scout. It was amazing. My background is I'm Armenian heritage. And I remember the scoutmaster turning to my mother. It was at a church where he had a lot of scouts go through in different ethnic groups and different racial compositions. And he said to my mom, well, we've had some Armenian scouts here in the past, but nobody's achieved Eagle. But I have a sense that Jack's going to be the exception. Well, myself and my cousin George both ended up getting our Eagle. But it was amazing to me how that scoutmaster, who I respect very much, Mr. Baxter, how he could sense that we had this in us as little kids. You know, 12 years old and being assessed by the scoutmaster for that potential. But when we went to scout camp, we would go for a couple of weeks, and there was the option of you could eat at the mess hall and all, but our scoutmaster, he wanted to teach us basic skills. So we learned as patrols, we would cook all our meals. We had to set up our tents. We kind of roughed it, so to speak. But we got to really appreciate nature, and we took hikes. We did lots of things with the outdoors. And I have to say that spirit of scouting and working, just like Sharon Richardson had shared, when she said that, I couldn't help but relate to that. It's just wonderful. But scouting and service to others actually has oriented my life. Even when I was in college, I joined the scouting fraternity Alpha Phi Omega. And also being a public service helped me make a decision to take my engineering skills toward the environment. So I got my PhD in environmental engineering, kind of from coming out of the scouting background, I have to say. And the spirit of public service kind of permeates everything I do in decision making, such as being of service in the civic arena and things like that. And some of you may know that back in, I think it was 1991, Lake Ridge got the Charter Virginia Green Community Award in the state of Virginia by the Department of Forestry. But that was because we worked one-on-one with developers, eyeball to eyeball, about treescape, having a green environment. And over the decades, that has had its effect to where we were recognized by the Virginia Department of Forestry. So I just wanted to share that. And my passion continues. I worked at EPA for 40 years as an environmental engineer, and I was able to use those, my interests and skills in that area. And I continue to do that through the other organizations. So I just thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing, Jack. And I was remiss in saying that if you have something to say, and I might miss you if you wave your hand around because there's 2 pages of images. Down on participants, there's a link you can click that says raise hand, and you could do that too. Next, I'm gonna see, let's hear what Cherie has to say.
Hi, I'm glad to be on this call. I'm an old lady now, and I have a lifetime of connection with green, not by design, but just good luck of everywhere I went. I always hung out with people who just wanted to do things in beautiful green places. My whole life, when Jack said Boston, well, I went to Boston University, but the first thing you did is, where could you take a bottle of wine and enjoy it? And it would either be by the harbor or it would be some hidden park somewhere. So, and I've been all over the world because I was involved with a sporting event called the America's Cup. And so I've experienced beautiful national parks literally all over the world. But again, I think that if you have a proclivity to gravitate towards green, it happens. When I lived in New York City, the one thing we'd always do is would split a car rental and head north and discover all the parkways in New York. But tonight, one of the things I want to bring to all of your attention, even though most of you live in Prince William, is I have a relationship with River Farm, the home of the American Horticulture Society. Unfortunately, the 13 members on the board in July voted to put it on the market and put on a platter the proceeds of approximately $15 million. It has not sold, and there was another vote a week ago. The chair who orchestrated all of this and the co-chair who had ties to the American Public Garden Association are gone, but unfortunately most of the people are out-of-towners. If you care and want to support your friends of green who live in that area, even though American Hort is supposed to be national, the point is that it's a public place for all of us. And if you couldn't go to Mount Vernon, you could go to River Farm and enjoy that little respite in Alexandria. So we are going to mount a very serious campaign, much like Sweetbriar folks did. We all remember how Sweetbriar's decision was turned around. This should be a no-brainer, and it's insulting to me that Enid Hoffman, I didn't know her personally, but I have a feeling she did not want to go to a private buyer or a developer. Everybody thinks this is a setup and there's a private buyer in the wings, but I put my email in the chat. If you can't find it, I always say go to Nancy Veers. Nancy Veers knows how to find me. It's very, very important because we need green voices and we need the press to pay attention. There was an opinion letter, and I've wrote written several. Why do I care? I believe in the fact that American horticulture, although it fell short in the last decade, it's an opportunity that's waiting to elevate horticulture. And the last people I want to see have it is the American Horticulture Association, which is a trade association, who cater to only the biggest botanical gardens, which we are all glad that they do what they do. But this has got to be more about the big fancy botanical gardens, even though we do enjoy them. That's why I love tonight. You talked about community gardens. And at the end of the day, I live in Vienna, Virginia. My garden club, Air Hill, we have 8 public gardens. And we're crazy people. The more people who give us compliments in terms of our native plant effort, we suck it up. We work at it even harder. And that's what I love about this group that you have got going here, Kim, because you've got a lot of passion. And on the diversity end of it, you know, I love the fact that our headquarters is actually at the National Arboretum. And I love the Washington Youth Garden. I love the fact that a lot of children who are inner city kids get that experience. I know that Manassas has children who live in tight spaces. And for those of you who work with the kids, Jackie, the whole Boy Scouts, but scouting isn't the only avenue. I love the fact that youth programs are going on in your community. I always, Kim, you don't know this, but I always use you as the poster child. And I'm like, I said about American Hort, I go, oh my God, Prince William, their website and their resources are better than the American Hort. What's wrong with you people?
Oh,
so,
thank you.
No, I'm serious, because you really kick ass. That's what I'm going to tell you. You really kick ass. And the fact is, you've got the engagement. Everybody pays lip service on Zoom. It's about executing. It's about the doing. I'm the president right now of 63 garden clubs in the DMV. And yeah, we are ladies, but a lot of people are like me. We're not about just flower arranging. We're about an environmental statement. And that movement is growing more so in garden clubs across America, because we want to engage with younger people. Younger people want to look at the big picture, and the more we can help them, guide them towards their advocacy. I mean, nothing rings truer than when you can turn an advocate into a green warrior, because you get things done. So thank you for allowing me to be on this call. Keep up all the good stuff. I don't get to come to everything, but I always like, what's Kim doing now? So it's like,
sometimes you should call and tell me. Thank you very much. And I hope you put down where people can go online for more information on the chat, because I will send that out.
I'll put my email on there again.
And you mentioned something about community gardens, which we do have a couple here, and the people that run them are on this call. One is at Merrimack Farm Wildlife Management Area behind the stone house. And it's, you know, maybe 2/10 of an acre, all native plants, and it's just been beautiful. It's a wildlife haven, and it is chock full of plants. And the intent was to create a hot spot. It's maybe a little more wild than you would want behind your house, but it is a hot spot for wildlife, and it's great if you're doing an education program. And it's also really good for people who like to go out and watch wildlife, but maybe can't walk a mile around the trail. So it's just a really
well,
nice
you know,
thing.
you get the whole world going there when it's your Bluebell Festival. Nancy Veers has been the biggest beater for Merrimack Farm. All her photographs, she has so many followers on Facebook. And my friends who live in Maryland, part of my thing, go like, can we get to Merrimack Farm? Is that far? Because we think it looks like a great place to go. I mean, so the secret sauce is working in terms of just putting out the photos, because people, even when there are no bluebells, they want to come out to your country, your version of country. We went last week, by the way, to the Maryland Ag Reserve, and that's pretty beautiful too. And I'm going to give you a name, Melane Hoffman of Hidden Ridge Flower Farm. She's one of you guys, even though she does cut flowers. She's an interesting green link. You know, sometimes we have to go beyond our boundaries to keep up our, you know, our good stuff, our good chemicals. So that's a, you know, it's a good place to land because that's only 45 minutes from you guys in Prince William. So.
Thank you. And I think Elena has a question.
I know Elena through Facebook.
Oh, there she is.
I have a question for Brett because we're talking about Merrimack. And I know some people are uncomfortable about hunting deer. And I'm just going to preface this with, I would never let Brett hunt my deer. I do have a question because I know that obviously one of the problems with the overpopulation of deer is that they basically destroy all the underbrush and the growth that's important for birds and all the other wildlife. So my question is, do you hunt at Merrimack, and do you talk about conservation as far as why it's important to do deer hunting? I'm just curious if.
Are you here, Brett?
Yeah, I'm here. I have not hunted at Merrimack, but I've heard that they have a program out there that they are trying to bring down the deer population. I've got a couple friends that hunt there. Primarily, most of these parks allow hunting, bow hunting primarily, and all the people have to qualify. And in most cases, they, without sounding like a jerk, most of the guys don't take deer, a lot of deer with their bows. Bow hunting is not the easiest thing in the world. I think a lot of the people that hunt have a bad reputation that they're out there just killing things, when in reality, they're out there enjoying the outdoors. I've hunted thousands of times and watched deer walk right by me and I don't shoot them. It's not all about going out and killing things. Now, I do every year donate deer to Hunters for the Hungry. That's like the first thing that I do when I first deer that I take, I usually take that over and get that processed and take it over there. But yeah, I think it's like Elena said, that there's a lot of damage that can be done when deer populations are too high. So if you know people, or you've got, you know, you look out your window and you see 15 deer in your yard, that's probably not a good thing. So maybe, and I'm talking to you, Elena, because I've seen pictures. Maybe you might want to let one of your local hunting friends come harvest some of those so you have some flowers in your yard.
You bet. And I actually have a question for Sharon, who you talked about the importance, which I totally agree with, of green space in everywhere, close to communities, things you can walk to. And you're also on the Park Commission, or whatever it's called. Yeah. Is there any attention being given to that in the county here?
Oh yes, the Prince William County Parks, Recreation and Tourism Department has a very robust plan for trying to acquire more parkland, trying to maintain and upgrade the park land that we already have, and trying to build more parks. But like everything in Prince William County government, and really all governments, it comes down to funding. And even though we've done surveys, we had a whole bond referendum, and county residents spoke pretty clearly that they want parks, recreation facilities, open space. When the rubber hits the road, we don't always get as much as we would like to see. So that's where I would like to challenge everyone who is on today's webinar. Let your Board of County Supervisors member know how you feel about parks, recreation, tourism is a part of that, and open space or green space. Let them know that it's important to you. Reach out to them. that beautiful Neabsco boardwalk we was expensive to build, but it's won all sorts of design and environmental awards. It is a jewel in the crown of Prince William County, and we need people to come out to those board meetings when parks and recreation and tourism items are on the budget and speak on behalf of them. At budget time, we need you to say, we know education is important and human services is important and transportation is important, but so are parks and recreation. And we need you to just continue to be advocates for our parks, continue to be stewards of our parks, and continue to support them.
And I would really second that. Thank you very much. If supervisors don't hear from you, they will think you don't care and it's not important. And it's very easy to push parks and the acquisition of new parkland out of the agenda. And here on the East, we're running out of time. We have less and less possibilities of land that we can buy. So I think now is the time to do that.
Yeah, and another thing is to push for equitable growth. I live in Lake Ridge in the Occoquan district, and I know the Occoquan and Woodbridge districts are very heavily built out. And yet people still want to push development on this end of the county when there's a whole western end that could share some of the load. We're not saying pile up everything out there now, but Eastern Prince William County really can't take every new thing that people want. It's some of it's got to go west, and so keeping in mind equity, the need for everyone to have green space fairly close to where they live, and the importance of preserving that green space so that we're not all paved over in Prince William County. Those are important.
Thank you. Anybody else? And please remember that you can raise your hand if you are pictureless and have something to say.
Hi, I'm Opal Elliott, and I don't live in Prince William County, but I did happen upon this particular group when you were talking about a place down in Gainesville that I think one of the power companies was trying to take over that had been a historically Black community. But I just wanted to talk about a little bit about, first of all, my backstory. I grew up in South Philadelphia, and I didn't know that African Americans didn't go to park, because I grew up in South Philly. There was a park 1 block from my home, and my community was primarily African American, and basically that's who I saw in the park. My parents used to take us to Wissahickon Park, where they had a beautiful stream, and my father would catch the water from the stream, and we would actually drink it. That was in the 60s and 70s, of course. And we used to go to a place in South Philadelphia called the Lakes, where we would swim. It was a great big park, and you can walk. So I grew up going to parks, and my father and mother, who were from the Grand Cayman Islands, loved nature. My father was always growing something, and he passed that on to his 3 girls. I took the Master Gardener program in here in Green Springs in 2017. And so, you know, it's my husband and I, we've lived in Alaska. We travel all over the state of Alaska. Our son kayaks. He takes his children kayaking. We go to a lot of the national parks. We just came back from Great Falls. We just came back from Shenandoah. So we love parks. And I think that there is a feeling when we went to Shenandoah, we saw no one there that day that looked like us. It didn't bother us because we were out in the open and we loved it, but we didn't see anybody there that looked like us. We went to Great Falls and we saw a lot of people there, not many that looked like us too. So I'm interested in seeing how Fairfax County, we go to 4 Mile Run all the time, can maybe link with a program like you have here. They may already have it. I don't know, but I'd like to see more people that look like me out also. It's not gonna ever stop me from going to the park, but I really wish that we could find a way, and I'd be willing to help in any way I could, be on any committee to encourage more, because I think being outdoors is just, it's joy. And I think that there's a whole group of people who miss being outdoors because they don't always feel welcome or that it's accessible to them. So that's my story.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'm just going to ask Maritza one quick question. Carlos talked a lot about how Hispanic people are attracted to water. And I know at Lusitania, you get a lot of people on the weekends, so many that sometimes the park is at capacity and closes.
Yeah,
So I was,
that's correct. All right.
so are you getting more and more popular? And I also am aware that I think Lusitania is the only public access point to the Potomac River.
Yeah, so because of COVID, we have experienced a larger volume of people coming through the park. Though due to staffing, we've had to reduce our capacity, unfortunately, to half of what we typically take. So it's a wonderful advantage being on the Potomac because it does attract many people from many different backgrounds, a lot of picnickers in particular. That area has been well designed to attract large families and also swimmers. Technically, you're not supposed to be swimming out there. We don't promote it, but people are still able to swim out there. So there's some challenges with that, but one of my goals in the long run is, if I'm still around there, to try to take a more educational, interpretive standpoint. So even though families do come out to the outdoors, is my dilemma is how do we inspire the younger crowd to the nature and translate that conservation message with them?
That's a challenging question that many, many people think about.
Yeah.
I know that, you know, when we do things at Merrimack Farm, I'm usually more family oriented and have thought about it. It's great for your kids to be into nature, but if the parents aren't also, you're much more limited in what you can do and what the kid has exposure to. So anybody else? Dudley, you have any remarks for us before we close?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I was just going to say, Kim, you are quite the role model. I have run across since you and I met, what, last year was it, I suppose, and earlier this year. And I've talked to some young women who are trying to get some things going in their communities. A young woman that was in the Milwaukee area. And I told her about you. When I run across young women who seem to be just starting their career, you know, we either meet through emails or we are in a Zoom call. I always talk about how amazing you are, and for them to reach out to you as they're starting their career. And, you know, trying to do things around policy and influencing people to get them more conservation minded. And from the work that I've seen you do, I feel like you are the role model for young women who are getting into that arena. So I just wanted you to know.
Thank you so much. I'm just aw shucks here.
Well, you're amazing. You get stuff done. I mean, not that other people don't. It's just that you know, from what some things you and I've talked about, you get things done on a large scale that I think is commendable, and certainly, you know, the way you do it, I think is worth modeling. So I tell these young women to reach out to you. So I don't know if any of them have, but it just seems to me like you're a great role model. So
well, thanks. We try. That's for sure. My motto is persistence counts.
Yeah.
So I see Linda over there nodding. Okay. So anybody else? This is the last chance. Well, I'll tell you about my favorite story. And When I was in elementary school, we lived by a wetland. It was a big swamp and it was big, and the water was deep enough so it came up well over our knees. And me and my friend would spend hours just wading around in there and looking at this and looking at that. And then we come out on the other side and hop up and take a break and look down, and we'd just be covered with leeches, which are the sign of a healthy ecosystem. So we would scream and then we'd pull them all off and then we'd go right back in. And that was a great experience for me.
It doesn't sound that great, but.
Oh, it was. It was just wonderful.
I don't do
It was so funny. We just go scream like it was such a surprise too when it happened every time. It was really fun. So no hands up here.
Well, Kim, Ilana, one thing to mention about advocacy, it really, really does work. In the 1990s, the county wanted to build a waste to energy facility.
Oh, at Featherstone.
Well, and it was a tremendous effort. I hope John Steinbach's still on the call. It was a team effort, and probably the most effective thing in the world was we had gone out to get signatures of people who did not agree with it, and the numbers of people in each one of the supervisors' districts, and it would have sunk them had they kept on persisting with it. So we were able to put that to ground and not have that deal with, because if you read the fine print with a waste energy facility, if you don't provide them enough trash, you either have to pay them or give them your recyclables to burn. And so and not only that, but the toxic ash. So a little bit of a different commentary than the beauty that we've all been speaking of. But if we don't advocate for the environment, we're all going to be worse off for it. But we can be successful.
And Prince William actually is rich in natural areas. We're the only locality, I believe, within the entire Chesapeake Bay watershed that goes from a tidal shoreline to a mountain. And we capture the transition from the coastal plain into the Piedmont. We're the northernmost location for some plant species and the southern for others. So we are remarkably rich in natural assets, and that is something to protect. And it is a key part of sustainable, attractive communities. So again, we all need to add our 2 cents to the local dialogue and support green open space. Jack has a comment.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, part of the Civic Association activity, the PELT Committee, Planning, Environment, and Transportation Committee activity has been very gratifying when we identify green space. And one of our members on the PELT Committee, who was in the predecessor of the Conservation Alliance, was Jim Wagner, Jim and Joan. Mm-hmm. And it was such a pleasure working with them. And also Linda Silverstrand's on the phone, and she was on the WELT Committee at the time, Woodbridge Environment, Land Use and Transportation Committee, which is a predecessor organization to the WPCCA. And but we worked and supported Jim and others to make a set aside for the Woodbridge Wildlife Refuge to be transferred to the Fish and Wildlife Service. And it was so gratifying. I mean, there was many players, local, state, federal, all that had to come together. But it was such a gratifying experience. And Kim, you know all that history of that over 500 acres to be dedicated as the former Harry Diamond Lab. And then, of course, we worked on, there were so many instances when we worked with developers. I recall vividly trying to establish contiguous green space, because I remember we had a PELT committee meeting on the Cherry Hill Peninsula, and the one criticism we had for the developer was the green space was not connected. And we said, well, how does the wildlife have a transportation corridor? And we had jokes about it, but the reality was, we said, you need to have contiguous green space for the wildlife. And so
right, fragmentation really is not good. And Carlos, do you have any closing remarks here?
Well, number one is to thank you again, Kim, for all the great work you do. And I want to thank all the panelists. We never stop learning. This is very enjoyable. I'm glad I was able to participate. And I sincerely want to congratulate Marika for her, not only her academic success, but her career successes. And I'm so proud of her, really. I hope I can meet her personally one of these days, and work together in this endeavor that we are in. But that's pretty much it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for all the great work you all do.
And thank you all for coming. I did record, so nobody forgot to hit the record button. So we'll put it up on our YouTube channel and send you an email that includes the chat. And then maybe we can get your slides, Sharon, and put them in there also. So we'll have a little repeat of this. And then we'd certainly like to do other programs. And if you have ideas for topics or for speakers, please email me or call me. And we can just continue the conversation, which is getting more and more interesting every time. So thank you very much for coming.
And thank you for hosting this. This was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Sunny.
Thank you, Kim. You're awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, thanks. And thank you,
to all the
Sunny.
guest speakers.
yeah.
Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
I'll look for you guys at your parks.
Oh,
Oh,
Corinna
yeah.
has up.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kim.
all right.
Thank you,
See
Kim.
you, Linda.
Thank you.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about Occoquan. It's okay.
Because I was like, oh dear. So I'm still here. You can, what did you want to
Yeah.
say?
Oh, we were, Maritza had talked about getting more young people out to the parks, and I was saying that it would be really awesome, I guess, to work together and, for anybody out there that's trying to work with young people getting out into natural spaces. I know that the refuge system and Fish and Wildlife are trying to start a new branding initiative to get young adults and more young people outside. I think it's just really hard for us specifically because wildlife refuges are a little bit different in the things that we're allowed to do. And I feel like there's a lot more freedom in parks. So having that partnership to be able to do some of those activities like camping or fishing, which we don't have allowed on the refuge right now, it would be great,
Good. And always for us to connect and work together because it's going to have to come from everywhere as a groundswell.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, I appreciate what you've done here, Kim. It's a great honor. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. So everybody will need to come back, and don't forget, I will send a reminder in the email of the Prince William Forest Park program because the value of the park, you will be amazed when you hear it all.